Everyone, it's Onyx, and on today's episode, I'd love to info dump about what's possibly my favorite band, Primus. So, without further ado, let's dive into the weird, interesting, and unusual. I'd also like to give a shout out to the artist behind the picture that's just going to be showing the entire time. That's my little sister, Grace Kolesick. She made it for my dad, who is the one who first showed me Primus, so I figured I would give her that shout out. A bit of history about Primus is it was formed in 1984 in El Sobrante, California. That a bit of facts about history of that town. Means the leftover in Spanish. And in the Rancho era, grants were measured out per state and different, cities and stuff. And any leftovers of the money or the food or whatever was stored there. So I thought that was interesting. The band first started with Les Claypool. You know, it's the main. He was the lyricist and the bass player. Todd Huth on guitar and Jay Lane on the drums. Todd and Jay eventually left and were replaced with a lot of different people over the years, but mainly it was Larry or Lair Lalonde and Tim Herb Alexander. Although Tim left Primus twice before, finally quitting in 2024, he sent an email. it's that's like the worst breakup is just a text um, for anything, let alone a band you've been a part of since I believe the early 90s. Um, but he said he had just lost his passion for it. Some people say it's because Les Claypool's pretty difficult to work with, which kind of makes sense, but I feel like that happens with a lot of different bands, the stress and everything. Um, but the stress, especially with him, because he had two major heart attacks in the span of, I believe, 3 years. He had one, and then 2 years later, he had another, and both required open heart surgery, of course. But the times that he left weren't even in the same year of those heart attacks, so I thought that was a bit interesting. The band itself didn't become popular until the early to mid 90s with The Seas of Cheese and Pork Soda. Those two albums were featured on MTV when MTV started featuring more alternative rock and experimental noise rock, which a lot of people associate Primus. Personally, I see it more as experimental funk, like alternative. There's a lot of stuff in there. Um, when they started, they also became sort of popular or they became popular partially because they started touring with Tool, and that makes a lot of sense considering Danny Corey played in the band off and on throughout the years. They're mainly a. I looked it up, and there's a lot of different genres. Kind of going back to that, I consider them a funk alt band. Many bands over the years, actually, weirdly enough, were influenced or had music inspired by the band. Limp Bizkit, Korn, Deftones, and Incubus, which honestly, I want to say Limp Bizkit just because, like, that's not too much of a surprise, just because they're also, like, weird. It's like an experimental vibe for the entire band. Um, they all heard of Primus or listened to their music or just have like even met the different band members over the years, and it was always Les Claypool. He was always there, which makes sense considering a lot of people, a lot of fans, um, like the band and like Les Claypool because of his weird, his weird singing, his weird lyricism, and his weird bass riffs that he does. He has a lot of really weird. I'll continue to say weird. I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that in like, I think this is the only band I've heard this that like is it's its own brand. At least to me, it feels like that. Um, Les actually made separate bands, kind of. They were mainly different. Yeah, they were separate bands. They they had a couple of them were like Colonel Claypool's Frog Brigade, Les Claypool and the Holy Mackerel, which I didn't even know about. You'd think me being a Primus fan, I'd know about that, but I didn't know about it until I was looking it up, doing research for this episode. The most well known to me, but also just in general, is Duo de Twang, where they mainly do covers, but in like a really weird way. It's like if I were to if I were to give a vibe, like a genre to these covers that they do, because they redo them. You could definitely tell it's a cover, but it's like country, but like back roads, like scary country. I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to say redneck because I don't know if that's like kind of a weird, like a mean thing to say. But it definitely gives off that vibe, at least to me. They're mainly, actually, I think all of the songs that they do are covers. And then Oysterhead. A lot of people don't know that he was in there not only with Trey Anastasio from Fish, but Stewart Copeland from the Police. Which honestly, Stewart Copeland, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not surprised because especially with Les Claypool, um, those are like two of the last people I think I would see doing stuff together, like being in a band together. But if I remember correctly, Stewart Copeland also worked on a lot of the OST for Spyro. Again, I might be wrong on that. If so, I will put I will put the right singer, the right composer for that in the description. Um, the more popular songs that a lot of people like, and especially uh, some of my favorites. Um, I believe the first one I ever heard was Jerry Was a Race Car Driver, and my dad just put that on the, on the radio one time. He plugged in his phone. Actually, I think it was a CD. He had many different CDs, many different albums over the years, and that was the first song that popped up. And it's a really good song, don't get me wrong, but I think my favorite either has to be My Name is Mud or Too Many Puppies. I like them both for different. They both have like insanely different backgrounds. My Name is Mud is more. I'm not gonna lie. It's about a addict, either on meth or cocaine. Pretty sure it's meth. Either owing money. I think he is trying to get money from another addict, and he ends up just killing him because he doesn't have it. And the reason I like it is because it's just immediately you get this vibe off of the main character of the song that you're like, oh, I don't like that. And if you already feel weird listening to the song, do not look up the music video because he's really good at playing a creepy redneck. I don't want to say that. A creepy, like, for lack of a better term, redneck. He's really good at playing a character who is going through like some sort of withdrawal too. I I think it's the way because in the video he's licking his lips the entire time and it's so gross to me. Maybe it's because I have OCD and it's very like health related to me that I'm just like automatically other bodily fluids from other people. Like I just want to throw up. But the entire time you can kind of feel the main character, who I mean, Mud is his name. I don't think that's his like birth given name. Um, but you can kind of feel like in the way that with the different bars and everything, the different parts of the song, he gets like crazier and crazier, and you kind of have a peek into his life, and it's like artistic, but it was also just like a nonsense song. Like like when you listen to it, you quickly understand what it's about, but you're also like, oh, he's because they make the band Primus. They make a lot of songs about addiction, but it's in like a silly way. Like people that you don't really I don't want to say silly because that's really insensitive, but that's really how it is. It's more dark humor. People you don't really think about, people who are just like I don't I mean, there's no other way to say it. People that you just see like shooting up in an alleyway and you don't really like think about I think the term is Sember. It's not somber, but it sounds a lot like it. Remember that. Wow. I'm really showing my knowledge here on this learning podcast. Um, but it is defined as like kind of having the realization that other people have just as intricate lives as you do. Um, and it's like it brings like a whole new sadness because you're like you see those people and you're like, oh my God, that was someone's kid once. Um, and it's sad in that aspect, but it's also I think the way it's less starts playing the bass and it's more discombobulated. It's more like you feel like you're going insane, like just as the character is. That's why I like that one, but I also like Too Many Puppies because when you first, this is, I believe, the first song that Primus made. It doesn't sound like a lot of their other songs, mainly because it's in the very early stages. What I like about Primus is they had this vibe that was like, oh, okay, early 90s rock. And then they just got weirder with it. Like the further they go on, it just gets so much weirder in a good way. Um, I want to keep on saying that. Um, it it's a pretty deep topic, just as My Name Is Mud is about in a way. It's about how America keeps sending more and more soldiers. They're more like expendable. They're not even really kind of seen as people. And in the puppies in the song alludes to soldiers and just like this is too much. Like just don't do this. Like this is like what is war? What are we doing? Where are we fighting all the time? Um, They also made Winona's Big Brown Beaver, which is a pretty good. The song is really good, and the music video is even better in a way. They're like plastic. I don't know how to explain it. It's a very weird music video, as a lot of them are. A lot of them actually um, are claymations in which Les Claypool actually helped, like in the art and everything, which I thought was interesting. Tommy the Cat, that's another good one. And either people are like, of course, this is their most well known, but some people don't know this is Primus. It's the intro to South Park. They also played for a couple of OSTs in different video games. A lot of them who were, of course, drug related. Um, Weirdly enough, kind of like their early years, especially with Les Claypool, he tried to join Metallica. he, he, I don't even think it was something he immediately jumped to. I believe it was James Hetfield that had sent him an early. Um, it was recorded, but it wasn't released. It was like an unreleased song. And he's like, I want to hear you play the bass on this. And he listened to it after Les um, auditioned. Sorry, I forgot the name. After he auditioned, and he was like, you know, it's too weird. Like he just straight up said, he was like, it's too weird. Um, he didn't say it in like a mean way. That's why I'm like very careful about saying weird. I keep on reiterating in a good way, is because I think for a little bit Les Claypool was actually pretty self conscious when he said that. And he was like, oh, weird, like a weird way, like a mean way. But James Hetfield in a later interview was like, I actually really liked his music. He was too weird for our band. Like, our vibe, we were more rock. And he was like his own thing. Like, really unique. You'll hear weird and unique a lot in different either documentaries or when people are explaining, especially with the bands in the music that was influenced by Primus and less, Limp Bizkit, Korn, Deftones, Incubus, they all talk about how weird and unique, and they just really were into that. And that's why I think it's interesting when you ask people why they're into it, you'll get people from different walks of life. I remember my dad, he ran a military surplus business, and so many different people came in. And I was like, this is kind of weird, because usually, they had the vibe about them of, you know, I don't want to say just like white dudes, like old white men, but it kind of was. Um, you'll have people who are like, who is that? And then other people are like, hell yeah, Primus. Um, and they were always people that you didn't expect. In high school, I was in a sociology class in this most, I don't want to call her a Karen, but she had that vibe of like, she was like middle class, like suburban mom, and she loved Primus. And it was just the most, like, you're like, how did you even hear about that? Like, it was just such a weird, because even with them being on MTV, not a lot of people, I mean, that's when they started getting popular. But some people who have never even, like, listened to MTV, some of them who don't even know what it is, surprisingly, because, like, I don't want to say I didn't watch it growing up, but I definitely wasn't as into it as, some of my family members or My dad, he just loves music. He loves bass. He loves all of the different vibes and stories behind songs. So maybe that's why I know a lot about bands, but they it it's like completely out of the vibe of what that person is like. I don't want to say clique or, stereotypes, but it kind of is. When you think about it, you're like, oh, you're the last person I would have thought who would be into this. Um, in fact, the band Primus, but in some of his solo albums, or solo bands, I guess, one person band, I guess his solo career a little bit. Even though Primus was always there, he never, he didn't, oh, I'm just going to leave just for a little bit and then come back. Um, he was promoted with Interscope, with Atlantic, like some pretty well known. I think everyone who's gonna watch us knows about Interscope. They're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. That's the only way I can explain it. Um, because people, when you start listening to them, you're like, oh, that's that band that made this. Especially with South Park, just because it was such a weird intro. And I never really look up the different. I don't want to say I used to not look up bands who make intros to stuff, intros to games, to movies, TV shows, stuff like that. I never really was interested until my dad started. Music is a very close bonding thing that we have. My first concert ever was a Primus concert, and he's brought me to different ones. I went to a Godsmack concert. Any concert I went, it was only with him. We went to Freekbass, which is another, of course, a bass a player. He's really weird. Definitely look him up. I will put, because it's Freekbass, all one word, but it's not freak, Freak. It's EE instead of EA. Yeah, really, really, really weird stuff. And with that, I'm gonna kind of go into what I was already talking about, but a little more in depth. I call it the Why the Love segment. Why do so many fans like it? So many fans from all different walks of life. A lot of them, they're not even really into a lot of weird music like this. But that's why I go by, never judge a book by its cover, because all these people that I see and I'm like, you were the last person I thought would be a Primus fan. A lot of people like Les's slap and pop bass style. He gets significantly weird. Sometimes he brings in instruments in a way that they were not meant to be played. One of the um, kind of joining in on this, on another reason people like them, is their stage presence. Very weird stage presence. And I remember my favorite song, just simply due to the stage presence, was Mr. Crinkle, in which Les brought out a stand-up bass, started playing it it was not how it was supposed to be played. And it was very eerie, and he wore a pig mask, and it was supposed to be some sort of serial killer vibe. Very weird, and one of my core memories, because I was like, this is insane. What is this? Is it secretly terrifying music? In a way, it kind of is, because a lot of it has to do with, backwoods, just very, I guess Southern Gothic, which you'd think in California you're like, oh, whatever. But less specifically says the area he grew up in, there's a lot of. It's like an Appalachian. I don't want to say the Appalachian Mountains, but it's kind of that same vibe of like backwoods country, like eerie, kind of Southern Gothic vibe to it. Um, Again, a lot of the music, at least from my personal take, I like how a lot of it sounds like I'm going crazy, like in the song. Not just the music, or not just the character that the song's about, but it makes me feel like all the songs about me in a way. I can't explain it other than the character's just going slowly insane. Because when you listen to it and you're like, I wonder how other people are interpreting this song, because almost every song I'm like, oh, I'm going insane. Like, this is so weird. Um, the fan base is also, of course, really weird. And the absurdist humor. My favorite thing that people do right before Primus comes on stage is yelling "Primus sucks," uh, which I like. It's very simple, but I like it. It's a staple of the fan base and just what this band is about. Um, like I said earlier, songs are usually about weird people, weird stories, often about drug addictions, sometimes very deep and political, but always unique. Always a special brand of, I don't think I've ever heard another band with this specific vibe. Um, he has even made fan albums, the band, not just him. I always say Les Claypool. Um, the band Primus has made fan albums. They notorious in, I believe, 2011 and 2014. They made Primus and the Chocolate Factory. And my favorite song from there is Cheer Up Charlie. I don't know why I like it so much. You know, I think that's just that's just something I always say. That's a baseline to explaining, why I like this band to people who've never heard it. They're like, "What the heck? What do you like about it?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's just kind of, it's just a weird, weird band." My favorite album ever was The Desaturating Seven, and that was another fan album about a book that Les Claypool used to read as a kid, and it follows these different trolls that suck the color and the life out of everything as they go. And the entire album is going through, it's very, it's fan songs have always gotten to me. They're always so well made, so well planned out, especially with this band. There's, because it's kind of like, I wouldn't say, like a fandom, like the Desaturating Seven didn't have a fandom, but when musicians come out and say, oh, this was actually like a fan song or heavily inspired by this, you can kind of, you're like, oh my god, like it gives you a whole new meaning to it, because you either, like, I didn't even know about this book, and when I read it I was like, oh my god, this is I understand this on a whole different level. And I think that's the most interesting thing about Primus, is you don't know why you like it, you just do. And with that, I'm going to end today's episode. I'll see you guys later. Bye.